Ahoy there. Today on the Red Sea, what was the biggest misconception that you had as a child? Underneath the floor of a building was just an endless void. I thought people who replaced floors were incredibly brave, so I always told my parents I wanted to replace floors. For a year or so I wanted to be a tax collector. I saw one in a Pink Panther cartoon and thought they were just people who knocked on your door and kept all the money you paid them. That people of other races just had different levels of being tanned. Found out in the mall that I was wrong. I thought having a job was just you picking a company you like. Waltz in, find an empty spot, and start doing something. I had no concept of interviews, tests, and all the paperwork involved. I thought being fired from work meant that the fired person gets killed. Every time my mom would tell me and my sisters not to bother her or she could get fired from work. She partially worked from home. I assumed that her boss would come into her office and literally shoot her. I was so terrified that my mom would get in any trouble at work. Oh my god. I thought a really similar thing. Whenever people would explain people getting fired to me when I was really young, they'd say person got fired and lost their job, which made me think, well, I guess that means getting fired and losing your job are two different things. And so that meant I had to come up with an explanation for what being fired is. So I thought, well, it must mean you get burnt, right? Yeah, no. My mom always told me that if I got lost or separated from her while out in public and could not find a police officer, I should seek out the nearest woman with children. Her reasoning was obviously that another mother would be a good kind of stranger to talk to, much more likely to help and less likely to harm a lost child. My reasoning, however, was that if I somehow never found my own mom again, I could and would just go home with a woman and have new siblings to play with, so I would not get lonely. All that you needed to do to get pregnant was get married. I thought you had to be married and sleep in the same bed. Then if you both wanted a kid, then pregnancy would randomly happen at a later time. Unless you were infertile, then pregnancy just could not happen. I thought one boob was milk and the other was water. It made sense because we needed to drink water to live, right? My sister convinced me that but cheeks held our pee. That led me to believe that PPL with big bottoms held it in. And yeah. I thought a potluck was where everyone brought food to a party and put it all in one giant pot. Then you would scoop out a plateful and whatever you got was your luck. If you missed an exit on the highway, you would basically end up in a different state. I would bury coins in my backyard so I could dig them up next year and be rich. Because buried treasure. For whatever reason, I always thought limes were just unripe lemons. When I was in my early 20s, I went to buy a lemon tree and was so confused to see they had lime and lemon trees. I feel like an idiot every time I think of it. I thought that if I tilted my head to one side for a picture, it made me look sexy. God knows what I thought sexy meant back then. But it was only something naughty girls did. So I would wait until right before the pic was taken, and then quickly tilt my head right as the shutter went off. That there was absolutely no way I'd ever get to be as old as the adults in my life. For some reason it seemed more likely to me that I could become a dog than that I could age into even a 15-year-old. My parents were not raised in the US, but they tried to make sure my siblings and I got the whole American experience, so they tried introducing us to Christmas and even sent us to Christian summer camps. For some reason, this caused a sort of confusion in my mind, and I thought Santa was God, and I was never corrected because my parents did not understand Christianity or Christmas. Down syndrome was when you were really sad. I thought you could say something like looks like you got a case of Down syndrome to your crying friend. Ordered pizza from a pizza shop is only for birthdays and for when you move to a new house. The moon is chasing us. That my dad just always knew the way. On vacation, in unfamiliar cities, everywhere. I learned about maps and reading road signs later. I'm still amazes that people manage to drive somewhere new without GPS. I remember the first time I encountered a GPS in a friend's car and I nearly cried. She said I just enter the starting address and the destination address and it will tell us how to get there. I thought that's bull malarkey. There's no way that's going to happen. That adults were mature, responsible, and not afraid of anything. Also, that I was destined for greatness. That ship sailed decades ago. That everyone I ever heard about was from my country. Eminem, French. The Pope, French. The Rolling Stones? French. Of course. Elizabeth II? Congrats. You're now the Queen of France. My aunt convinced me for a full year that a place known as Wally World's Chapstick Emporium existed. A year later, I asked my mom if I could go to Wally World's Chapstick Emporium. She said, "What's that?" And I said my aunt told me about it. Come to find out, it was just Walmart. That mountains grew. 'Cause my dad joked Dad said Table Mountain was just knee height when he was a boy. Though people hid inside ads and gave people the money. People actually died in movies. I thought that kung fu was a sort of duel of life and death. You challenge someone and you fight until one of you is dead. The other person does not have any injuries or anything. He magically recovers all HP and is ready for another fight. Damn you, Nintendo. That not everyone has a sister. I was certain that everyone had a sister like me, and when I went to a friend's house to sleep over I was dumbfounded that his sister was not there. His parents ended up showing me a picture of some random kid and told me that was my friend's sister just to shut me up. That trees made wind. Trees would move, and their movement makes the wind. I honestly love that I used to believe this. It's so innocent. Also, that if you saw the clouds move it was actually the world spinning. As in the clouds would stay still, and world was turning. I also thought trees made wind, and I was always very confused when strong winds would break off branches. I mean, why would the tree make so much wind it broke itself? You could get pregnant by kissing. I used to think you get pregnant by cuddling as well. There was a whole period of my life where I avoided having too much contact with my teddy bears. My ex-GF and her sister had hypothesized that male underwear have bigger stronger waistbands because it needs to be able to support the balls like bras holding boobs. I thought that men had two separate sacks for their testicles. When I gave my first hand job I thought my BF had an accident and then had them sewn together. Personally I blame all the penis graffiti shot led me to believe that's what they looked like. This is the only place I can admit this. I'm 21 years old. Been doing sex with penises since I was 16. But I also was under this misapprehension about ball anatomy until very recently, after I got a BF. At first I thought he had a rare one ball thing going on, until I felt the two little orbs inside the one bag and it finally clicked, and I realized people never say bowel sacs. All dogs were males, all cats were females. Those concrete walls on highways mean we are getting close to your destination. My parents said see those walls, it means we are getting close. Because there were some near where we lived, and a misconception was born. I thought adults could not run, because I have never saw my parents running. I thought women were cold-blooded animals and men were warm-blooded, because my mom was usually cold and my dad usually warm. Chicago was in China. Gas cost like $2 in total. Movie tickets cost hundreds of dollars. Black people could not get sunburned. If you use too much conditioner all your hair will fall out. The first time people kissed was when they got married. In the song that goes I saw mommy kissing Santa Claus I straight up thought that the kid caught the mom cheating on their dad lol. I thought drinking and driving meant having any beverage in a vehicle, had no clue about alcohol. In kindergarten I reported my mom for drinking and driving in the middle of a school assembly and they called her in for a meeting. Everyone thought it was hilarious but no one corrected me or taught me what it really meant, and I think it was like 6th or 7th grade before it all clicked. I just never knew raisins came from grapes. Found out age 18 and my mom was like I'm sure I told you. But my sister also did not know so it's debatable. One of my female friends from high school was convinced that a penis writhes around like a water hose upon ejaculation. I used to think that all child actors were dwarfs because kids cannot act. I thought a male could only give to kids as they have two testicles, and that in the process of impregnating a woman, the testicles would explode. The older you get, the more fingers you will grow. Also women lay an egg each month, but it can take them by surprise, so restaurants have paper bags for women to store their egg in. I honestly believed that if I sat close to the drain in the bathtub while letting the water out, then I would be sucked out with the water. I thought all my friends' families were also rich and mine was so poor. Turns out my parents just decided to not go into a malarkey load of debt. My family was not rich by any means, we were solidly blue collar middle class, but my parents were smart with their finances. I thought you got a girl pregnant by peeing inside of her until I was like 12. I was talking with an older friend and somehow we started talking about sex. And because I wanted to sound like I knew what I was talking about, I said something about peeing in her to get her pregnant. He looks at me dumbfounded and says that's not how it works at all. I thought Quebec was the richest country in the world. Turns out Quebec isn't not even a country. Who knew? I did not realize that when you check a bag at the airport it actually goes on the plane. I just saw it go off on a conveyor belt and then appear at the destination on a conveyor belt. I thought there were just really long conveyor belts underground between cities for luggage transportation. Unfortunately it is the end of the video, but do not worry, there are many more coming. Like and subscribe for more videos from the Red Sea. Thanks for watching.